This is the lady the boat was named after.
Oh.
Moses Grohigan lived 13 miles from here down in Dorchester County. 10 miles further down the bay was Harper's Island. William Ruark had a wife named Rebecca, and William Ruark got Moses to build this boat, and he named it for his wife Rebecca. She was born in 1831. She died in 1912. She lived to be 81 in 1800. Most people live to be 60 something. On top of that, she had 9 children. 2 of them died as babies. A lot of times the mother died when the baby died in 1800, but she survived. 10 years ago, her descendants came down here for a family reunion. They all come on the boat for a boat ride. And they had moved as far away as Switzerland, Miami Beach, Florida, Manassas, Virginia, Baltimore. They had moved all over, but they were just down here for a family reunion, one trip on my boat. I bought this boat because I watched it sail by me for 20 years. The guy that had this boat could catch 30% more oysters than I could because the boat sailed better. I watched this boat sail by me for 20 years, catching 30% more oysters. I finally got a chance to buy this boat. Now we draw 1/3 of the money off the top of the tank. If we have $1,000 worth of oysters, the boat gets $333. That's for the captain to put back in the boat. And if you put it back in the boat, you can maintain. He had the boat 35 years. In the first 25 years, he maintained it. The next 10 years, he didn't put any money back in the boat, and the boat completely rotted out. I knew the boat was rotted out. I knew I had to get it rebuilt. But I also knew I was 40 years old. Hoped to have 20, 30 years left to oyster. So I'll buy the boat, I'll get it rebuilt, it'll last me the rest of my life, and I'm gonna catch 30% more oysters. I paid $21,000 for the boat, completely rotted out. Now the reason I entered into this was because we had more small oysters than we ever had before. We had a potential gold mine for the dredgers. So I'll buy the boat, I'll get it rebuilt, it'll last me the rest of my life, and I'm gonna catch 30% more of these oysters. I paid $21,000. It had to be rebuilt. I went all over Maryland to get somebody to rebuild it. All the shipwrights were busy. They said, we can't work on the boat. Next state down, Virginia, is that where you live? The next state down, Virginia, they said, bring it down here, we can fix it. We can have it done by November. We can rebuild the whole boat for $20,000. It had to be done. I knew this when I bought it. I took it to Virginia. I put it on dry dock in Virginia. We took every plank out of the boat, out of the bottom, put all new frames, complete rebuild. It had to be done. Everything replaced. When they got finished, new rebuild, the $20,000 ended up being $58,000. They ripped me off in Virginia for $38,000. They knew the minute they got me on dry dock, they had me. I'm not going to be able to get my boat back till I pay them. They knew this. And they must have known I could borrow the money because I borrowed. I paid them $58,000. I'm still telling myself I'm going to be okay. I've got enough time in my life to overcome this. I hope they got 20, 30 years left to oyster. I'm going to catch 30% more oysters, and I'm going to overcome this. When I got the boat home, it cost $20,000 more to finish it.
Oh my God.
$20,000 more when I got home. So I had 21 I paid, 58 and 20, $99,000, 1985.
Oh my God.
I'm still telling myself I'm going to be okay. I'm going to overcome this. First day of oyster season, 1985, come out to the oyster bed. The boat's completely rebuilt. Threw the 2 dredges over. See, we have a dredge on each side. In the winter, we have a dredge on each, big dredge, just like they have. Threw the 2 dredges over. They come up full of big oysters. The oysters had gone from small to big, and 80% of them were gapped open, dead.
Huh.
Now, ever been sick to your stomach?
Yeah. Yep.
But I was 10 times sicker than you've ever been. I owe $99,000 and all the oysters, 80%. They died because of a disease. 60 miles from here to the east of us is Delaware Bay. Delaware Bay is right on the ocean, real salty water. The disease needs heavy salt. It hit Delaware Bay in 1948, wiped Delaware Bay out. It went out in the ocean. It went down the ocean front. It went by Rehoboth. It went by Ocean City. It went by Chesapeake, and it come into the Chesapeake. That's 100 miles from here is the ocean. And it come into the Chesapeake and started working its way up the bay. 35 years later, it hit here. The very year I had this boat redone. If it had hit the year before that, I wouldn't have bought the boat. She'd be gone like all. There used to be 1,000 of these boats. Now there's about 20. There would have been 19 if I knew what I knew, because I wouldn't have done any of this. They died from this disease. This water finally became salty enough in 1985. 35 years it took this water for finally become salty enough. You know why this water becomes salty enough? You know why? Because 100 years, maybe a little more before that, somebody from New York, Pennsylvania, Maryland needed some fresh water for the factories, the homes, and the power plants, and they started putting up dams and reservoirs on the Susquehanna River.
Oh,
The Susquehanna River goes clean up to Cooperstown, New York. That water, the good Lord made the Susquehanna River to flush the bay out. Now, I go back to global warming 50 years ago. 50 years ago, 60 years ago, and before that, there used to be as much as 15 feet of snow in the mountains of New York. Every year. That snow would melt in the spring and flush the bay out. Well, we don't have the snow anymore, but we have rain. They're keeping that water. They're using it for factories, homes. You know, Pennsylvania gets drinking water out of Susquehanna. So does Baltimore. And probably New York. You go up the Susquehanna River, and you'll find dams and reservoirs built between mountains where it starts at. It's keeping that water. They're using it. It wasn't meant to be. And then later, somebody built a canal from Delaware Bay to the Chesapeake Bay. The C&D Canal. You've probably been over it before if you've been.
Yep.
That canal wasn't meant to be there. If it was, the good Lord would have made it there. Now we're getting water out of the ocean in Delaware Bay into the Chesapeake. It's not meant to be there. So we made the bay salty enough for the disease. We've got the disease because the water's salty enough. It's only one way to get rid of the disease, and that is for the bay to freeze over. It used to freeze every year, but it doesn't freeze anymore. So what I'm trying to tell you is we made the bay salty enough by trapping that water in the Susquehanna, and we're making it warm enough that we don't have no ice to kill the disease. It's all a people problem.